I want to be a Bollywood actress, and so I don't embarrass myself in front of everyone there, I'm going to be trying to recreate one of the most challenging scenes from a Bollywood movie called Kalank. Now, I know a lot of people didn't really like Kalank and it didn't really do that well, but honestly, some of the scenes are actually really hard. And because ever since I started learning how to act, I'd literally just always been doing monologues because it was just so much easier and it was just myself, which is great for learning how to remember and work with a script. But obviously, other than 1% of scenes, 99% of scenes are done with other people. And more importantly, done with reactions. So obviously, if you're doing a monologue, who the heck are you even reacting to? So I'm gonna challenge myself to do scenes where it's more than just me, and even doing a scene at the end of this video where the character's getting chased by 100 dudes with swords because of the partition, and she's reaching out to her boyfriend on a running train. But I'm gonna do that all here in my room. And the crazy thing behind that scene is there's no dialogue to hide behind. It's literally all just acting and expressions. So the story starts out with a woman named Satya who wants to find a wife for her husband because she's dying. So in her eyes, she ends up finding the perfect candidate, which is a girl called Roop. She's basically this very cheerful, charismatic, and optimistic person who's also pretty assertive, the eldest of two younger sisters, and has a single dad. And now they're not really the best financially, so they used to take a lot of loans from Satya's family. But obviously Roop's like, no way am I doing that, my freedom's not for sale. But since they don't have enough money to get their younger sisters married later on, she agrees. So this first scene is basically that.
रुकिए, चलूंगी मैं आपके साथ, लेकिन मेरी एक शर्त है, आपके पति को पहले मुझसे शादी करनी पड़ेगी। मैं उस घर में सिर्फ आपके पति की पत्नी बनकर आऊँगी, उपपत्नी नहीं।
रूप, मैं बस इतना चाहती हूँ कि जब तक मैं ज़िंदा हूँ आप मेरे पति को जान लो, समझ लो,
ताकि आपके गुजरने के बाद आपके पति मुझसे शादी कर लें। कैसी पत्नी है आप? और अगर मैं एक पल के लिए भी आपके इस पागलपन में शामिल भी हो जाऊं, तो इस बात की ज़मानत कौन देगा कि आपके गुजरने के बाद आपके पति मुझसे शादी कर लेंगे? किसी भी वजह से उन्होंने मुझे घर से निकाल दिया तो फिर कहाँ जाऊंगी मैं? क्या होगा मेरा? ये सब जानने के बाद कौन अपनाएगा मुझे? सोचा है आपने?
रूप, मैं वादा करती हूँ।
वादा? जब आप ही नहीं रहेंगी तो आपका वादा निभाएगा कौन? तो शादी किए बगैर मैं उस घर में नहीं जाऊंगी।
Initially, doing the scene did feel kind of out of sync. It took me like around 2 to 3-ish takes to like start getting the momentum right. But once that was done, I felt like it was easier for me to pick up on the little things. Like for example, pacing, reactions, respond times, even like cutting the other person off. So for example, if the line for the other character stops at Taki, just knowing when to snap in and make the pacing right. So with monologues, because you're pretty much on your own, you don't really have to think about when to cut the other person off or how to respond or what your reaction should be like. You pretty much say it and take it at your own pace according to the script. But then doing it with another person and having to bounce off them, it becomes a lot more challenging in a way. Because you always got to pay attention to the other person as well and even know their lines. And what the interesting thing is, we pretty much speak in duologues or with other people all throughout the day for our entire lives so far, right? But then unless you actually go and do it in a script like this, you become a lot more conscious of your every move. The next scene is when Roop's finally settled down in her marriage. Satya unfortunately did pass away, and now she's basically trying to convince her boyfriend to live life with her. And basically how that ended up happening, once she moved to their house after the wedding, she was basically in a sad era because although she said yes to get married, she didn't actually want to get married, so it just felt very restricting to her. And so one fine day, she heard a voice singing in the distance. So she wanted to learn how to sing from that person. But talking about that person, that singer that she heard singing, is forbidden in that household because Roop's father-in-law has a secret kid with her. Well, he's not really secret, he's just like sidelined. Najayas. But she ends up learning how to sing from there anyways because she's like, I want to do this, so I'm going to do this. And that singer was Madhuri Dixit. So she ends up going to that area to learn how to sing, and it's not really the most prestigious place. And the guy that she falls in love with is Madhuri Dixit's character's son. But the reason that he wanted Roop to fall in love with him in the first place is because he wanted to screw over his dad, which is also Roop's father-in-law. See, Roop's husband, Satya's husband as well, very husbandy of him. See, he felt like Roop's husband got everything he also deserved. So being part of the household, being part of the business, just having his father's name attached to him, basically. The legitimate son, meanwhile, he was the illegitimate son. But what can we do? Roop's fallen in love with him now, and she doesn't really love her husband, neither does the husband love her. She wants to run away with him and do something. I don't think they actually ever really planned what they were gonna do, but they want to do something. And this is the scene.
मैं उनसे प्यार नहीं करती, ना ही वो मुझसे करते हैं। कब तक जीती रहूँगी ये झूठ में?
कुछ रिश्ते कर्जों की तरह होते हैं, उन्हें निभाना नहीं, चुकाना पड़ता है।
तुम जो भी करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो, उससे किसी का फ़ायदा नहीं हो रहा।
कभी कभी नुकसान रोक लेना फ़ायदे से बेहतर होता है।
जज्बातों को रिवाजों की गुलामी नहीं करनी चाहिए। इस दुनिया में सारे गुनाहों से सबसे बड़ा गुनाह कौन सा है पता है? अपने मन को मारना।
मेरे मन में तुम्हारे लिए कुछ नहीं है रूप।
मुझे तुम पे यकीन क्यों नहीं होता?
क्योंकि तुम यकीन नहीं, इश्क करना चाहती हो। बर्बाद हो जाओगी। दर्द के अलावा कुछ नहीं है मेरे पास देने को।
मंजूर है।
तुम जानती नहीं मुझे, मेरी ज़िंदगी को, या उस वजह को जिस वजह से मैं तुम्हारे करीब होना चाहता था, और वो वजह मोहब्बत नहीं है।
प्यार ना करने की हज़ार वजह मिल सकती है डर के बाज़ार में, पर प्यार करने की सिर्फ एक ढूंढनी होती है, अपने दिल में। मुझे अपनी वजह मिल गई है, बाकी तुम्हारी मर्ज़ी।
See, this scene initially on paper looks very simple and it looks like it would have like one type of emotion overarching. But honestly, there's so many little subtleties inside each emotion and each line. I personally found it a bit more difficult to get into momentum for that. But having done it now, I feel like it's gotten easier for me to do it because I did it. See, monologues usually have a higher range of intensity and emotions and emotional spikes. Meanwhile, this didn't really have that as much and it was a lot more subtle, although quite fun to pull off. And the last scene. The scene. So before this scene, it was basically before the partition era happened, like right on the edge. Tensions increasing, the environment's getting really bad and violent. Between all of this, Zafar's been hyping up one of his friends for years and in a way manipulating him to add fuel to the fire because he wanted to, again, screw over his dad and Roop's father-in-law, which is the same person. And one fine day, he admits this to his friend and dude's mad as heck. Meanwhile, this is happening. Roop's husband writes a very controversial article in his newspaper. All hell breaks loose, so now Zafar's friends are trying to kill them with blowtorches and swords. They all run to the station and Zafar's trying to stay behind so they can get on the train. Roop and her husband get on the train, but she's still waiting behind for Zafar. The train starts to leave. She reaches out with her hand and tries to get him on as soon as possible. And when he finally reaches her, he gets stabbed in the back by his so-called best friend. Literally gets stabbed in the back. But if initially Zafar manipulated him, so who's the real person getting stabbed in the back here? So here is the scene.